Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the US today, affecting over 40 million adults over the age of 18. Anxiety can rob you of the life you're meant to live, but if you have anxiety, you don't need me to tell you this. You already know it. I have tremendous empathy for anyone going through anxiety, and that's why I wanted to make this video today. In this video, I'm going to show you how to try to find the root cause of your anxiety, and make sure you watch all the way through to the end because there are going to be some surprises in there. First of all, if you're new here, hi, thank you for joining. I'm a certified health coach and nutritionist, and I believe in finding the root cause and healing from within. Let me first say that sometimes while we're searching for that root cause, we might need to put a Band-Aid on the problem just for a little bit while we work on what's going on underneath. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it takes a bit longer, and that's all okay. Now, what's the difference between root cause healing and using a Band-Aid? If you see a tree in your garden and it's dying, the leaves are turning brown and you know it's not doing well, are you gonna go out there and just spray paint the brown leaves green so that it looks better? Probably not, because we all intuitively know that's not helping anything. That's not fixing anything. That's a Band-Aid. That's temporarily covering up the problem so we don't have to notice it or know that it's there. Now, what we're probably gonna do instead with that tree is look and see if there's a parasitic infection. Look and see is it getting enough water or sunlight. Check the soil, see how much micronutrients it's getting. We can actually do all of these same things with ourselves, and that's what root cause healing is. That's the difference between a Band-Aid, which is just spray painting the leaves green, and root cause healing, which is trying to figure out what is causing those leaves to turn brown in the first place. I have something I'd like to share with you. Almost all of my clients have dealt with anxiety in some way, shape, or form. Why is my patient population so heavily stacked with people dealing with anxiety? Because a lot of people that come to work with me don't feel good. They don't know it at the time, but they might have food sensitivities, parasites, gut issues, autoimmune conditions, stealth infections, thyroid dysfunction, and more. And when one thing is off in your body, everything is off in your body. Our bodies are amazing, complex machines, but no organ system is an island, my friend. Everything is interconnected. So let's talk about some possible root causes that can connect back to anxiety. Number one is toxins. Now, this is a really big topic, too much to fully dive into in this one video alone, so make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the full toxin series I have coming out soon. Toxins come from many different sources all around us. They can be absorbed through three different routes. One is absorption through your skin. Anything that you're putting on your skin, your body, your face, shower gel, lotion, makeup, anything that can very easily be absorbed into your bloodstream. The second route is ingestion. So this can come in through food or water or even accidental ingestion like lipstick, which is very problematic if your lipstick has lead in it, which a lot of them do. The third route is inhalation. So we are constantly breathing in things around us like benzene from the gas that we pump every day, to jet fuel from the planes going overhead, to car exhaust fumes when we're stuck in traffic. Some other common sources of toxins in your daily life are BPA plastics that are in pizza boxes or water bottles or plastic Tupperware or plastic wrap, Teflon coating on nonstick pans, mycotoxin VOCs from mold, mercury from silver fillings in your teeth, formaldehyde from the glue used in your home for cabinets or floors, and literally hundreds of chemicals that we put on our bodies every day in the form of health and beauty aids. So as you can see, toxins are everywhere. These toxins impact your endocrine system, your methylation, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, and pretty much every system of the body. And together, all of these systems can impact your mood greatly and can contribute to anxiety. So that's why taking steps to remove the toxins from your life, to remove them from your home, and then start to remove them from your body can be really helpful and go a long way towards alleviating anxiety. Number two is the microbiome. So Hippocrates said it best, all disease begins in the gut. If you don't know what a microbiome is, that is everything that lives inside your gut. So we actually have tons of bacteria, viruses, parasites, protozoa, and fungi living in our intestines. And it's actually a good thing. We want them there. They actually help do jobs for us. Now, we have problems when we either have too much of certain ones, which is called an overgrowth, or we have bad ones, which are pathogenic. We really need to focus on our microbiome because we are supposed to have a good combination of healthy gut bugs to help take care of us. Now, some of your gut bugs actually make neurotransmitters for you. If you're not familiar with neurotransmitters, you might have heard terms like serotonin and dopamine. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that your brain makes, and they're very important for your mood. Now, what do you think happens when the gut bacteria that you need to help you make neurotransmitters aren't present enough? You're not going to have enough of the neurotransmitters you need. And this can greatly impact your mood. And remember those bad bugs that I mentioned, the pathogenic ones? Well, they can actually do a lot of damage too. According to researchers at Viome, which is a premier stool testing kit, pathogenic bacteria can actually influence your stress response and produce harmful peptides that can contribute to chronic inflammation, which contributes to mood disorders. There's a study done in the journal Cell in 2013 by Haseo et al. On children with autism. In this study, they found that the children with autism had less of a specific type of a bacteria called Bacteroidetes fragilis. They actually gave the mice Bacteroidetes fragilis, and the autistic behaviors in the mice ceased. So again, we can see just how important this delicate microbiome is. This is one of the reasons why gut healing is at the core of my work with pretty much every client I work with. Like Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. So if you're looking for a place to start to find the root of your anxiety, starting with your gut would be a great idea. So if you're not sure where to start, check out my video on SIBO, which will be linked in the end card as well as in the description below. In the SIBO video, you'll find out more information about this specific type of gut overgrowth called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Okay, number 3 is genetics. And before you throw up your hands in despair on this one, I do have some good news. You can actually change your genetic expression through something called epigenetics. Epigenetics basically means that while your genes load the gun, environment is what pulls the trigger. So what that means is by taking control of your environment, you're able to take control of your genetic expression. These variations in your genes are called SNPs, which stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms. And there are certain SNPs that predispose a person to anxiety. But again, the good news is that the effects of these SNPs can be mitigated by influencing our environment, our lifestyle, our nutrition, and our supplementation. Taking control of these things is essentially like removing your finger from the trigger of that gun. Now, one other note on genetics is there's 2 sides to every coin. Even SNPs that seem bad at first glance usually have an upside. So don't get too down on your genes, even if you think they're causing you problems. A great example of this is COMT. COMT is one of the most studied SNPs in regards to anxiety. This is because of its ability to elevate dopamine in the prefrontal cortex. This causes rigid thinking and obsessive compulsive tendencies, which sounds like a bad thing, but remember there's another side to that coin. People with COMT also have an increased working memory and cognitive function. This not only gives them a leg up in many occupations, but it also gives them a leg up in the world from an evolutionary standpoint. Their increased attentional focus can help them spot danger quickly and easily. Pretty cool, right? So, no matter your genetics, remember that it's within your control. The first step would be to find out exactly what genes you have that you're working with, and then find out appropriate mitigation strategies for those genes. Number 4 is thyroid dysfunction. Thyroid dysfunction is often misdiagnosed and overlooked. If you want more information on how to properly test for and diagnose a thyroid dysfunction, make sure you check out my video on thyroid testing. I'll link it in the end card and in the description below. One of the symptoms of thyroid dysfunction is anxiety. If your thyroid is overactive, it's called hyperthyroidism. It's estimated that 60 to 80% of people with hyperthyroidism have anxiety. If your thyroid is underactive, that's called hypothyroidism. Depression is slightly more common in hypothyroidism, but both anxiety and depression can be present in either thyroid dysfunctions. And in both hyper and hypothyroidism, we also see disrupted sleep, insomnia, mood swings, and irritability. So as you can see, your thyroid can really impact your mood as well, and it's a great place to look if you suspect you have a thyroid dysfunction. Number 5 is micronutrient imbalances. There are 14 key nutrients that researchers have linked with anxiety. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into each of those nutrients so you can start filling holes in your diet right away. Okay, so number 1 is choline. This is a precursor for a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which impacts your mood and your focus. Studies have shown that low levels of acetylcholine can lead to anxiety. My top foods for choline are eggs, liver, and peanuts. Next up is carnitine. Studies show that this little-known nutrient can reduce anxiety and increase feelings of well-being. My top carnitine foods are red meat, fish, and poultry. Next up is vitamin D. Low vitamin D levels are linked to anxiety. By the way, they're also linked to depression, autoimmune disease, and cancer. So vitamin D is super important. I highly recommend testing your vitamin D levels at least once a year so you know if you're in an optimal range and you can supplement accordingly. This is especially important if you live in the northern hemisphere in areas where there's less sun. I live in Oregon, not a lot of sun going on here, so I need to be really careful with my vitamin D supplementation. Make sure I'm getting enough. My top 3 foods for vitamin D are beef liver, egg yolks, and fatty fish like sardines and mackerel. Next up is vitamin E. Low levels of vitamin E are linked to anxiety. My top vitamin E foods are nuts, seeds, and leafy greens like spinach and kale. Next up is chromium. This nutrient affects serotonin transmission, which explains part of its anxiolytic effects. Anxiolytic effects basically mean anti-anxiety. Now, a little side note about chromium is that it also can help balance your blood sugar, and balanced blood sugar is very helpful for mood stabilization. My top foods for chromium are potatoes, broccoli, and green beans. Next up is folate. Folate aids in the production of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, both of which have a very calming effect on mood. The good news is that folate is really easy to find in foods. My top sources are legumes, leafy vegetables, and citrus fruits. Next is inositol. Inositol is a neurochemical messenger in the brain that affects dopamine and serotonin receptors. Trials confirm it's very effective in reducing the incidence of panic attacks, and high levels of inositol supplementation have been successfully used in clinical trials of people with severe anxiety and depression. My top foods for inositol are beans, grains, and nuts. Next up is serine. Serine exerts a calming effect by buffering the adrenal response to stress, and who doesn't need that? Supplemental serine was shown to lower anxiety scores in patients suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. My top serine foods are sweet potatoes, eggs, and meat. Next up is copper. This metal is an integral part of certain chemicals in the brain like endorphins that help calm feelings of anxiety. If you follow me on Instagram, you've definitely heard me say that high levels of zinc can lead to a copper imbalance. So if you've been on a dose of zinc higher than 45 milligrams a day for more than 4 months, you should seriously consider checking for a copper imbalance in your body. And of course, always be careful when you are supplementing because lots of different supplements can interact negatively or positively with other supplements or even medications. My top copper foods are liver, oysters, and shiitake mushrooms. Next up is magnesium. Magnesium helps regulate the HPA axis, or hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The HPA axis controls physical and psychological reactions to stress. Magnesium deficiencies can induce anxiety and even hyperactive effects. Magnesium deficiencies are one of the most common deficiencies in the US, so this one is particularly important to pay attention to. My top magnesium foods are nuts, seeds, legumes, and leafy greens. Next up is selenium. So in patients that were selenium deficient, repleting their levels back up to normal was able to completely eliminate their anxiety in clinical trials. My top selenium foods are Brazil nuts, yellowfin tuna, and pork. Next up is zinc. Clinical trials have shown a reduction in anxiety from zinc, potentially due to its interaction with NMDA receptors in the brain that regulate mood. My top zinc foods are red meat, shellfish, and legumes. Next up is vitamin B6. This specific B vitamin is a cofactor in the synthesis of many neurotransmitters ranging from dopamine to serotonin to GABA. GABA is a particularly calming neurotransmitter. My top B6 foods are fish, beef liver, and organ meat again. Last up is vitamin B3. So a very severe form of vitamin B3 deficiency is called pellagra. One of the hallmark signs of pellagra is anxiety. B3 has actually been shown to help enhance the effects of GABA, which is that calming neurotransmitter I just mentioned. And B3 is also needed to convert tryptophan to serotonin, another calming neurotransmitter. My top B3 foods are meat, poultry, fish, and coffee. So there you have it, 5 potential root causes for anxiety. Remember, anxiety is complex and multifactorial, and you can't tackle it all at once. But at least you have some helpful avenues to look down to get you started. I hope that helped. For more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. New ones come out every Monday and Wednesday.